Alright, what is going on, everybody? This is Trudger MC, and yes, today I am going to be talking about something that I know that some people like, some people don't like. We're talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. And before I go any further, I am just going to say these are the theatrical cuts. So, theatrical cuts. I have seen the director's cuts, and I do not like those. So, we're going to be talking about the theatrical cuts here, just so you are aware. So, yeah, let's just get into this. So I know that a lot of people have the idea that like Rob Zombie like ruined Halloween and his movies have nothing to do with the series and all of that. Well, I'm going to suggest that we maybe look at this a little bit differently. And I'm not trying to say to you that like, these are the superior movies, or anything like that. I'm just going to say what I like about them, what I see in them, and how you might see kind of a similar thing. So let's just dive right into the first movie here. And I know this one has some things that some people don't like about it. They don't like the full-blown origin story of Michael Myers right here as a kid, and showing his upbringing and having him talk and like all of that. But I would say that that is important for what he was trying to do, and that is make Michael Myers more or less the product of failure. And I think that that's a really interesting angle to take the character. So what I mean by him being the product of failure, we see in his upbringing that, well, let's just say he didn't have the best experience there. His mom, was kind of absent. She kind of did the best that she could, but it wasn't all that good. And then there was that boyfriend guy who just hates everyone in the family, and then he has the older sister who just doesn't like him, thinks he's weird, thinks he's, whatever. So, yeah, but basically he didn't have the best upbringing. Really, the only one that he kind of felt a connection with was his baby sister, who we find out later to be Laurie Strode. So, yeah, in this, he didn't really have that significant of a family there. And so there was that going on where it's like his family wasn't the best, and so they could have done more for him, and they couldn't really get there. So that's kind of the first red flag for him. And then when he's at the school, when you see him at the school and he gets bullied and all of that, he doesn't really have much of a connection with anyone there either, at least nothing good. And so he's just kind of lashing out, and that's kind of the only thing that he knows is violence and anger. And so he's just responding in that of, I know violence, I know anger, and so I'm going to do that. And so he does that, and yeah, it's not ideal, but again, that's just what he knows. And so his family couldn't really, help him in that regard. The school couldn't really help him in that regard either, because they just saw him as, this kid's a troublemaker and he's got issues, and we're just going to send him off to some psychologist. And then when we see Dr. Loomis, the version of Dr. Loomis in these movies, he's not the same like the Donald Pleasance version, where he's, where he just thinks of, like Michael Myers is evil and all of that. But like, I see I see Dr. Loomis in these movies as kind of a thing of him just kind of taking his psychology and being like, yes, I am very smart, and I want everyone to acknowledge that. And so you kind of see that he does try to communicate with Michael, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and he kind of tries a little bit, but ultimately he doesn't really seem too bothered by the fact that Michael isn't really talking to him or anything like that. And so he's just kind of like, whatever, I'm gonna write a book about this guy. And he does, and the book becomes successful, and then he becomes more focused on the book and the popularity and all of that. And so he could have had at least a chance with Loomis, but Loomis wasn't fully interested in that. But then there's also the thing of Michael himself. Michael himself was, partially responsible for what happened. And so, Michael, he had the chance to acknowledge of, yeah, what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have done that with my family. I shouldn't have done it with those animals. I shouldn't have done any of that stuff. And, maybe I can turn around. He could have done that. He could have been like, man, I really messed up. I shouldn't have done that. But he decided, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stay in this. And that's all I know, so that's all I'm going to do. And so he just kind of stays in that, and then that is ultimately what leads to, him breaking out. And yes, in the theatrical cut, the breakout actually makes sense of him, like, fighting off all the security guards and all that. We're not going to talk about the director's cut, all right? All right. So, yeah, but, like, he is basically the product of failure, and, like, Haddonfield, like, as a whole, didn't really do anything to help him or discourage him. It just kind of was there. That was just kind of the context with it. And so, like I said, he just kind of only knew that. And so when push came to shove and, things ultimately, came to that, he decided I'm just going to lash out in violence because I'm going to choose that and only that. And so that's kind of what happened there. And it even gets to the point where there's this one security guard that's at the sanitarium, played by Danny Trejo, and he was actually nice to Michael. He was actually kind of friendly to him. But Michael is just so invested in the darkness and the anger and the violence and all that. He's just so focused on that even when the one guy that was actually nice to him and actually tried to help him, when he actually comes to him, all he does is just lash out in anger. And so that's kind of, what that was showing. And you kind of see the effects of that, the aftermath when he does break out and he gets the jumpsuit and he gets the mask and he does, his whole rampage on Haddonfield and all of that. And then in the sequel, Halloween 2, yes, I know I'm going to talk about this movie now. Again, theatrical cut. With this one, you kind of see the after effects of that on Laurie Strode primarily. I mean, you do see it on other characters like Sheriff Brackett and Annie and Dr. Loomis and all of that. But the main focus is on Laurie. And she is kind of in a similar boat as Michael was, where she could have decided I'm going to evaluate what happened. As much of a mess as it was, I'm going to take the time and focus on this. I'm going to try to get better and all of that. But instead, she just decides I'm just going to play the victim. It's just a thing of my life sucks because this happened to me and this happened to me and I can't do anything about it. And she just goes on that downward spiral of just, this whole woe is me type thing. And she doesn't really find a way to process that or deal with it effectively. And so when Michael does come back and she, sees that and she knows this is going to happen again, she just kind of loses it. And then when she does find the reveal of she is actually Michael's sister, then she freaks out even more, obviously. And so you have that, but then you have Loomis, who at first is, just kind of obsessed with the fame that happened from the previous events of his just oh yes, I am a victim, I am sort of the hero now, and I'm going to write another book on that and all of that. And so yeah, it's this whole mess. And so he probably could have done something to help, but he didn't. He instead decided let's write Laurie as sort of a villain in this as well. And that's obviously not the way to go about it, but that's what he did. And so Laurie probably could have gotten the help that, would have helped her, obviously. But, it was people like Dr. Loomis that decided nope, we're not going to do that. And then you had Laurie herself that was kind of getting in her own way, similar to her brother in the previous movie. And, so I would say that that's kind of what it is. And ultimately what these movies are about is showing the downsides, the negative sides of life. And showing that, if all you have is the negativity of the hate, the violence, anger, the sorrow, the fear, if all you have is that and you're just laser focused on that, then honestly, you're not going to have a very good life. And so these movies kind of serve as an example of that, of you want to know what that's like. If you take that to the extreme, this is what will happen. So, yeah. And, I will say just, so that's what I have to say about that. But one other thing is the thing with the mom and the white horse and all of that, not in this movie, in this one here, in the second movie. So, the whole thing of, trying to prove an origin story with the mom and the horse and all of that. I know that a lot of people are that shouldn't be in there, but to that I say, would you rather have that or have it be a thing of he is the product of a cult, or just have like no explanation whatsoever. I know a lot of people like the no explanation thing, but like you have to acknowledge that, like, why does this guy only show up on one day of the year? It's always October 31st, okay? And so, like, why is that happening? Well, I mean, this movie kind of serves to explain that. In the theatrical cut, it's only 1 year after the events of the previous one. The director's cut's 2 years, and so I feel like the theatrical cut kind of makes more sense, and it does explain the thing of, like, basically Michael had unfinished business, and with his messed up mind and all of that, he's kind of seeing it as a thing of, I have more work yet to do. And then when he sees, and the seasons are changing and all of that, and it's getting closer to that October time, it's reminding him of, oh yeah, I remember what I did before. I have to do that again. And so he's kind of drawn back to that. And so I actually kind of like the White Horse stuff. Now, granted, I like it to a certain extent. I don't like it being in like the entire movie and all of that. But yeah, so there you go. That's what I have to say about these two movies. And in case you can't tell, I really like both of them. Again, the theatrical cut, the director's cut, not my thing. But the theatrical cut, yes, I am very much a fan of both of those. But yeah, so again, I'm not saying that you have to agree with me. I'm not saying that, you have to change your opinion and be like a thing of, I hate the Rob Zombie movies and now they're my favorite. And I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying that's why I like them. That's what I see in them. And yeah, you can agree with me. You can disagree with me. But yeah, so that's what I got. And so I guess if you like this kind of format, I mean, you want to see more stuff like this, you can definitely leave a like if you want. You can let me know in the comments what you think, if you like this, if you don't like this, if you agree, disagree, whatever you might think about the Rob Zombie movies. And yeah, I mean, we'll just see what happens. And I guess if you want to see more content like this, you can subscribe. You can also say, like, I want to know what you think about, blah, like whatever it might be. But yeah, so that's about what I got. I just kind of had this on my mind, and I figured, let's talk about it. So I talked about it, and there you go. So I hope that you enjoyed. I do hope that I'll see you all later. Goodbye.